As I'm recording this video, there are 93 playable characters in Dead by Daylight, 41 killers and 52 survivors. That's a lot of characters. And if we break it down even further, we'll see that we have 29 original survivors and 23 licensed survivors. And we've got 23 original killers and 18 licensed killers. I made some handy-dandy pie charts so we can take a look at these statistics because just throwing a bunch of numbers out there won't mean that much. I've been thinking for a while about licenses in Dead by Daylight and why they matter and what they bring to the game. Let's take a walk down memory lane and meet the licenses. Quick disclaimer, I'm sharing a lot of opinions during this video that some of y'all might not agree with, and that's totally fine. I'm here to broadly speak about the game's growth over the past decade. I'm really trying to not get hung up on the semantics of specific characters. The first license in the game, of course, the Halloween chapter with Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, along with the Haddonfield map. What a way to start. Potentially the most iconic horror slasher with the final girl of all final girls. They also introduced the obsession mechanic to the game, which has continued to be a subtype of killer and survivor perks. Next was Bill Overbeck from Left 4 Dead 2, who's actually a part of the base game, so I often forget he's not a DBD original. His perk Borrowed Time was so significant to the meta, it ended up becoming a base kit survivor mechanic. The following license was a Leatherface chapter, featuring the man, the myth, the legend, Bubba, known in-game as the Cannibal, another staple of slasher horror. A killer that single-handedly changed the camping game so much that he's probably a big reason for the anti-base camp mechanic. Following Bubba was Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, along with his survivor Quentin and the Badham School maps. The launch was a bit rocky, and Freddy's power has been changed substantially since release, but he introduced endgame focused perks to the game, and he fit right in as another icon of the slasher franchises. 3 in a row! Oh my goodness! Next we got the Saw chapter. This included the Pig, or Amanda Young, Detective Tapp, and the Gideon Meat Plant map. The Pig's power, while not being the strongest, introduced deadly secondary objectives. The infamous Gideon map tends to be a favorite of survivors and the least favorite of killers. If nothing else, it's a memorable environment.
You get to play Ash as a survivor in the hit video game Dead by Daylight.
Next, we're meeting Ash from Ash vs. Evil Dead, a solo survivor with a lot of personality. He also, I believe, was one of the first licenses to have voice lines, even if it was only in the lobby. Ghostface holds a special place in my heart. He had a relatively simple stealth power, but he's so silly looking and fits so well into the trials. He's also an interesting combination of a licensed outfit and an original character. Danny Johnson only exists in the Dead by Daylight universe, and I honestly think that works better than if we got Billy Loomis. Stranger Things was the first chapter taking a step out of what I would call the classic horror genre. It's a scary show, but it definitely felt a bit different compared to the previous licenses. We got the Demogorgon, Nancy and Steve, and the Hawkins Laboratory map. This was the first chapter with 2 survivors rather than 1. These 3 became extremely popular characters and were very much accepted into the game by the Dead by Daylight community. In June of 2020, for the 4th anniversary of Dead by Daylight, we got the Silent Hill chapter. I haven't played the games myself, but I know the impact they've had on the world of horror video games, and this was a huge addition. We got the Executioner and Cheryl, along with the Midwich Elementary map. Pyramid Head was the first killer that had a secondary Mori and a secondary method of taking hook states. For the following anniversary, we got another horror game icon with Resident Evil, Leon S. Kennedy, Jill frickin' Valentine, and the Nemesis, along with the pretty controversial but very faithful Raccoon City Police Department map. Nemesis had zombies, Leon and Jill brought in new trap and blinding perks with Flashbang and Blastmine, and this whole chapter left a real impact on the game. He hasn't been erased by the history books yet, as later that year we got the Cenobite, better known as Pinhead. He was the first killer to have in-game voice lines that weren't stars.
The box. You opened it. I came.
And he introduced the Scourge Hook perk type to the killer perks. The next license was Sadako from The Ring. She came in with an aged-up Yoichi. She, similarly to Pyramid Head, had an alternate way of killing survivors with her condemning curse. She's an extremely recognizable horror figure, so it makes sense she'd crawl her way into this game eventually. Well, we're back here already. It's Resident Evil Project W, our second chapter for a license. We got Albert Wesker, Ada Wong, and Rebecca Chambers. Wesker marks the beginning of the licensed Dash Killers, and he was extremely popular among killer players, being very strong and very mechanically challenging when you tried to do the fancy techniques with the Ouroboros.
I still remember exactly who I am.
The first license of 2023 was Survivor Nick Cage. Yeah, like the actor. He did shake up the Survivor game with 3 meme perks that are still very silly and used to this day. He also had some great voice lines, so yeah, interesting addition. About a month later, we got the Alien chapter with Ellen Ripley, the Xenomorph, and the Nostromo wreckage map. They might not be classic slasher horror, but Alien's probably the most well-known sci-fi horror besides John Carpenter's The Thing. This is great.
You're dead. You hear me?
Whoa, another one! Back to slasher horror with Chucky, our favorite murderous doll. He also introduced the third-person killer camera, which I personally don't love, but it was new, and people have been asking for Chucky for a while.
I hold out hope that one day the fog will part.
Going into 2024 with another licensed solo character, Alan Wake. I never played the games, but they seem spooky enough. Come on in, Alan, but maybe we can hold off on the licenses for like a second. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I mean, there are definitely some scary campaigns that you can play, so I think that works. Vecna's the first multi-tool killer, so he can do a lot of things to a decent degree, but he can't do anything super well. Aestri and Bearmar went a similar Ghostface boat where they're original characters packaged into a license. I love having a non-human survivor, at least, and they came in with bardic inspiration, which may have single-handedly prevented an all-out battle between killers and survivors when shit got rough. Next we got Lara Croft from Tomb Raider. I never played the games, but I mean, survival action is adjacent enough to survival horror, I guess. Oh my gosh, Castlevania? Like the vampire show? Okay, we got Trevor Belmont and Dracula from the animated Castlevania show. Gothic horror is cool, and vampires are spooky. Dracula didn't come in with his own map, but when you play against him on original maps, you can see his castle. That's cool. Tokyo Ghoul! I've not heard of this anime, but the ghoul sure looks cool. I'm sure he won't completely change how survivors feel about killers or anything. Oh my goodness! The most requested horror game license ever! Five Nights at Freddy's! Why am I not as excited about this as I thought I'd be? I mean, maybe because I'm not the biggest FNAF fan, but I really thought this would be more momentous. Immediately following Springtrap with The Walking Dead, another show I've never watched, but I mean, I guess it's popular. Zombie horror is adjacent to survival horror? I don't know, there's been a lot of licenses.
Oh, Dustin.
Stranger Things Part 2? Wasn't the first chapter only kind of adjacent to the type of horror genre that Dead by Daylight typically covers? And we already have a licensed killer named Vecna. I have a lot of thoughts about the steady increase in licenses we've seen over the past few years. Conflicting thoughts, mostly. I feel like I used to be of the opinion that everything adjacent to or within the horror genre belongs in Dead by Daylight. Bring them all in, you know? But lately I'm feeling what can best be described as license burnout. And I say lately, but the last license I was actually truly excited for was Alien. And that's weird because I have not seen the Alien movies. I just remember how big it was to secure that license and how much it would mean to the game. But since Alien, since 2023, we've brought in an additional 9 licensed chapters, and each one just makes me feel less and less excited. I know from a financial perspective, the more licenses we get, then theoretically the more money and players the game gains. But Dead by Daylight isn't Fortnite. We can't get by with nothing but references to popular horror culture, and this might be a correlation, not causation relationship, but the more licenses we've gotten, the less Dead by Daylight I've seen in Dead by Daylight. We're getting less lore related to the game, the rifts and tomes now have nothing to do with each other, the original characters feel less interconnected than ever, and the disconnect between the in-game story of Dead by Daylight and the actual game experience of Dead by Daylight has never been wider. I can't get immersed at all, and I haven't been able to in a while. With so little original content being released, it feels like the game gets less about an eldritch spider god kidnapping people from across time and space to force them to play her wicked games, and more about being able to point at the screen and be like, hey, I recognize that guy from show I like. I am by no means saying that any of the licenses are inherently bad, nor that any of them should be removed from the game, but I can't help but look at Dracula and think about an original shapeshifting killer we could have gotten in his place. I think about all the limitations that must be in place for a licensed killer's power to be made so that it's faithful to the original property. I think about how playing it safe and exclusively making middle-tier powers and never trying something new will make it harder for the design team to truly shake things up. I think about the 3 instances now of licenses being removed from the game, how licenses can and will be taken away, and the only content that we have that's permanent is original. I played through all the licensed killers for this video, and during the last few matches, everything really felt like it blended together. They all felt like high mobility anti-loop killers. None of their perks are super popular, because if a licensed perk is too strong, then the game is pay to win. And I'm not even sure how faithful these characters are to their original licenses, because everyone has to be, technically, on the same playing field. The Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, who shot rocket launchers, is equally hindered by a pallet to the Trapper, a guy with a machete and bear traps. The design team has to reshape the licenses to fit into the game, leaving us with forgettable killer powers and perks, and often disappointed fans of the original content the license came from. There have been some really well thought out license integrations where the killers, survivors, and perks fit right in and feel like the characters they're meant to be. But the integration quality definitely feels like it's gone down. I loved Dustin as a character on Stranger Things, and making him an adult and treating him the same way as every other survivor makes him lose all of his charm. The point of the Stranger Things kids being kids is that they're underdogs, and everyone can relate to feeling powerless as an adolescent or a teen. Now these two are adults like the rest of us. Original content in the game certainly varies in quality, just like licensed content, but I get more excited about original content because I know that there's more likelihood of behavior taking risks and doing something new. I know in my heart of hearts that a license will never fix everything flawed about the game. There's no one chapter that can forgive the balancing and buggy problems with DBD. I guess I just wish I was still excited about leaks related to new licenses. I'd bet money that this upcoming anniversary chapter will be a license. I've heard whispers of The Last of Us and Jason from Friday the 13th, and I am just so tired. In an ideal world, I'd like a solid 2-year break from licenses. I know that's a lot, but this is my fantasy world, and I can say what I want in my videos. I'd want to see exclusively original content that builds upon the world that's been created here. I love the original characters. Twins has my heart and soul, and when they added Tori Kane, who was a part of the cult that experimented on Charlotte and Victor, that was such a cool connection. I love that Tori, Hattie, and Sable all know of each other. I want the game to feel fleshed out, and I'd love to see more resources refocused back onto the game and the story. Also in this ideal world, the ratio of licensed to original content would be less 50-50 and more 25-75. 1 to 2 licenses for every original chapter is not only not sustainable, it makes the licenses less special because they're one of many. Here's a real world example. I love sushi. It's so good. Sushi is made more delicious by being reserved for special occasions like birthdays and celebrations. If I had it every day, I'd be really sick of sushi. That's how I feel about licenses right now. At the end of the day, I have no control over Dead by Daylight's future. I can only shout my thoughts into the void and hope that it does something. That is all any of us can do. I still love the game so much, and I had a lot of fun recording these matches.
You're my friend now.
I used to not get that nostalgic feeling when we looked back on the past and wished for better times, but when writing this video, I realized I miss times when we'd have multiple original chapters in a row. That doesn't feel like it happens anymore. Things are not all melancholic, though. The comeback chapter was awesome, and seeing more revisitations of older killers to give them a rework or a map or another survivor would be amazing. I'll volunteer twins to get a map next, please and thank you. And there's a lot to look forward to. The Grimoire is showing a lot of promise. The anniversary won't be a masquerade this year, so that'll be something new. And the latest PTB that I think a bunch of people are upset about seems to be trying to buff weaker killers and nerf stronger killers, and that seems like a great step in the right direction. Hi, this is Editing Sage a couple of days later after recording the script. And I say that there's a lot to look forward to, but oh my gosh, the latest announcement is like 3 licenses in one. What the fuck? My next video will be a lot more positive, I promise. I don't want to be another creator that just complains all the time. I know that negativity can weigh on you, but I've sort of been in a weird, bad headspace lately, and I wanted to get that energy out. So that's why I made this video. I've shared all the thoughts that I have, and I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. Please be nice. I'm very sensitive. Thank you to my wonderful Ko-Fi supporters for funding the art I use in my videos. Thank you for Alright. This is editing Sage again. I had more to that ending sentiment planned, but I have some unfortunate life news, which is that my family's dog, Plato, who was the grumpiest old man mini schnauzer, has sadly passed away. He lived a really good life, but it's been a rough few days, and I'm certain that this grief is something that a lot of you have faced or will face, so hold on to your pets, give them extra love and food and pats on the head, because their time with us is so precious and so short. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.